There are two ways a relationship can die. The first is with the slam of a door, in the middle of screams and accusations that echo through the house. The second, much more silent, happens with the click of a mouse and the soft hum of a printer. Cataloging the end. My story had no screams. It only had the cold, methodical buzz of paperwork. I was always the kind of woman who believed in fusion. Not just of souls, but of everything. Accounts, passwords, dreams. For me, the phrase "what's mine is yours" wasn't a glitch. It was the foundation of a true partnership. And we were a partnership. At least, that's what I saw reflected in his eyes every time I came home, tired after a long week, and announced a new achievement at work. I was the main provider, and I took immense pride in that. A pride that I now understand blinded me. I wasn't just building a life for us. I was financing the construction of an elaborate lie. I thought my success was our success, that my strength was our foundation. Every bonus, every promotion, was a joint celebration, proof that our team was winning. If you like stories of real transformation, give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Today, I understand that a team plays in the same direction, and I was running alone on the field, while he was in the stands, applauding with one hand and betting against me with the other. I clung to the idea that love was this complete entanglement, this blind trust. It was romantic. It was what the movies showed. But real life doesn't have a soundtrack to warn you when the scene is about to change dramatically. Real life has small signs, whispers that we choose to ignore because the truth is too inconvenient. And I became an expert at ignoring. It started with small things, charges on the joint credit card that he would explain with unnerving ease. "Oh, that was a dinner with an important client," he'd say. "I'm trying to close that deal, my love." And I, wanting to be the supportive partner, would smile and say, "That's great, honey. I hope it works out." Then, a slightly larger cash withdrawal. "It's for a surprise for us, but I can't tell you yet," he'd say with a sparkle in his eye that disarmed any suspicion. I wanted so badly to believe in that surprise, in the life I thought we were building. We get used to accepting the most convenient explanations, not because we're foolish, but because the alternative is to admit that the ground beneath our feet isn't as solid as we imagined. The loudest dissonance came a few months before the end. A considerable expense at a jewelry store. My heart sped up. Was it a ring? An early anniversary gift? When I confronted him with a hopeful smile, he seemed nervous for the first time. He stammered, said it was a gift for me, but he had bought the wrong size and had to return it. I wanted it to be perfect, he concluded, and the relief I felt was so overwhelming that it drowned out the voice of my intuition. The intuition that whispered, "No one returns a gift because of a wrong size without having a store credit or the new product in hand." But I wanted peace so badly that I accepted the lie. I gave myself the gift of a false tranquility, wrapped in denial. I didn't know it then, but in that moment of self-deception, I was paying the first installment on the most expensive lesson of my life. The breaking point didn't happen in an argument, but in a moment of pure professional joy. I had just received the biggest bonus of my career. Years of sleepless nights, of complex projects, of a Herculean effort, materialized into a number in our joint account. I remember the feeling of lightness, of pride. I called him, excited, planning a special dinner to celebrate our success. He seemed genuinely happy for me, for us. He said I deserved the world. And for a moment, the peace I felt was real. The foundation seemed solid again. If your intuition has ever screamed a truth at you, give this video a like. Let's continue the story. The next day, by a twist of fate, I needed to log into the banking app to make a payment. And that's when I saw it. A transfer. A single, massive transfer made the night before, right after my call. Almost half of my bonus was gone. The recipient's name was a woman I had never heard of. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't anger. It wasn't panic. It was a terrible clarity, like a light flooding a dark room and revealing all the mess. With trembling fingers, I typed her name into a social media platform. Her profile was public, and her most recent photo, posted just a few hours earlier, was a selfie of her. She was smiling, radiant. On her wrist, a diamond bracelet that I would recognize anywhere, from the same jewelry store as the return gift. The caption read, "Starting my birthday celebration in style. I'm the luckiest woman in the world." The world went silent. The sound of my own heartbeat was the only thing I could hear. There was no room for doubt. The surprise he was planning wasn't for me. The client dinner, the gift, our future, it was all a sham. And my money, my sweat, my sacrifice was the fuel that powered his double life. In that instant, the woman who believed in fusion died, and in her place, a creditor was born. I allowed myself to cry for one night. A night of mourning, not for him, but for the naive woman I had been. I cried for the trust that had been pulverized, for the image of a future that had shattered. But when the sun rose, the pain had morphed into a cold purpose. The first decision was radical. No confrontation, no screams, no accusations. Scandals give the guilty party a chance to defend themselves, to distort the narrative, to call me crazy. I would not give him that satisfaction. My response would not be emotional. It would be documentary. I called my bank manager and opened a new account, in my name only. Then, with a calmness I didn't know I possessed, I began my work of financial archaeology. I spent the entire weekend in front of the computer, with a spreadsheet open. Line by line, I cataloged every suspicious withdrawal, every unexplained expense, every transfer from the last 2 years. Every lie he told now had a date, a value, and a description. The client dinner became romantic restaurant, $250. The surprise became luxury jeweler, $3,800. The bonus became transfer to a third party, $20,000. The spreadsheet grew, and with it, a strange sense of power. I wasn't a victim. I was an auditor of my own life. On Monday, I made the most important call. Not to a friend, not to my mother. I called a lawyer, a woman with a steady gaze and a calm voice, who specialized in family law and, most importantly, in asset disputes. I sat before her, not as a betrayed wife, but as a client with a case. I slid the folder with the printed spreadsheets and bank statements across the mahogany desk. She reviewed the documents in silence for long minutes. Then, she looked up from the papers, met my eyes, and said a sentence that became my mantra. "We are going to turn your pain into paperwork, and your paperwork into restitution." In that moment, I knew I had already won. The greatest transformation isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about organizing yourself in silence. It took 2 weeks to get everything ready. 2 weeks of living under the same roof with him, acting with a normality that was almost theatrical. He suspected nothing. He was too busy living his lie to notice the truth being meticulously constructed right under his nose. Finally, the day came. I asked him to talk in the living room. He sat on the couch, relaxed, probably expecting me to discuss our plans for the weekend. I remained standing, feeling the solid floor beneath my feet. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, like a marathon runner's in the final mile. "We need to talk about our finances," I began, my voice neutral. He agreed, complacent. That's when I placed a leather-bound folder on the coffee table. It wasn't the same folder I took to the lawyer. This one was new, professional. He looked at it, confused. "What is this?" he asked. I didn't answer. I simply opened the folder. Inside, there were no accusations, no printed photos from her social media. There was only the spreadsheet, now looking official, and on top of it all, a formal letter of demand. A legal document with letterheads and signatures, detailing every cent that had been misappropriated and establishing a formal deadline for the full restitution of the amount, under penalty of legal action for embezzlement and unjust enrichment. He picked up the document. I watched his face shift from confusion to shock, and from shock to the pale shade of pure panic. He read every line, every number. He looked at me, his mouth agape, expecting an explosion, a chance to defend himself. But I remained silent. The power wasn't in any word I could say. It was there, printed in black and white. The sound of the paper trembling in his hands was my catharsis. I didn't need to raise my voice. The law was speaking for me. "My lawyer will be in contact with you to arrange the details of the transfer," I said, with the same calmness as someone discussing the weather. Then, I turned, picked up my purse, which was already packed by the door, and walked out without looking back. The door closed with a soft click, the loudest, most definitive sound of the end of our relationship. It took a few months, but the full amount was deposited into my new account. Every single cent. Today, when I look at my bank statement, I don't just see numbers. I see the materialization of my sovereignty. I see the proof that I could take the broken pieces of the greatest humiliation of my life and build a castle. From this journey, I learned 3 lessons that have become the pillars of my new life. The first is that financial boundaries are a form of self-love. Protecting your assets, your security, is not a lack of trust in someone else. It is an act of trust in yourself. The second lesson is that true strength rarely makes a sound. It doesn't need an audience. It manifests in strategy, in quiet planning, in the courage to choose the intelligent response over the impulsive reaction. And the third, and perhaps most important, you become what you tolerate. I tolerated small lies until they became a gigantic fraud. The moment I stopped tolerating was the moment I started to rebuild myself. It is possible to feel broken and still find a way to put yourself back together, not as you were before, but stronger, more aware, and infinitely more valuable. The pain of betrayal was real, but the discovery of my own power was transformative. And that power, no one can ever take from me again. If you believe that self-worth is an asset worth protecting, like this video. And if you've ever turned great pain into your greatest strength, comment, "My strength is my greatest asset." For more stories about turning endings into new beginnings, subscribe to the channel.